I've sold coffee outside those gates for 11 years. I've seen a lot, but I've only cried once. My name's Nell. I run a small cart on the corner opposite Hollingcrest Palace, 2 thermoses, a crate of paper cups, a folding stool I never sit on. I open at 6. Most mornings nothing happens. Tourists come at 10. The guards change at 11. The world turns. That morning was different, and I still don't know how to explain why. It was the second week of November. Rain, but the thin kind that doesn't fall so much as hang there, soaking into your collar without ever making a sound. The pavement had that dark shine. The plane trees along the wall had given up their leaves, and they were plastered flat to the ground like wet paper. Cold enough that my hands ached around the thermos handle. There were maybe 30 people at the railings by 10:30. A school group in yellow high-vis vests. 2 Japanese men with enormous camera lenses. A woman explaining to her husband, quite loudly, that the guards are not allowed to smile, which is true, and also that they are hypnotized, which is not. And a little girl, 7 maybe, red wellies, a terrier on a lead, one of those scruffy gray ones with a beard, the kind that look permanently offended. She called him Biscuit. I know because she said it about 400 times. The guard on duty at the near post was young. I'd noticed him the week before. New. You can always tell. It's not the uniform makes them all identical. It's the eyes. The seasoned ones look at nothing. They pick a spot in the middle distance and they go somewhere else entirely, somewhere inside themselves, and they stay there for 2 hours. The new ones look at things. Their eyes flick. A pigeon lands and they follow it just for a second before they catch themselves. This one's eyes flicked. He was tall, thin at the shoulders, and his bearskin sat slightly low so you couldn't see much of his face at all. Just a jaw, very set. Too set actually, like a man holding something shut. I remember thinking, that boy is having a bad day. Then I got busy. A tour group wanted 6 teas and I only had 4 cups, and by the time I'd sorted that out, something had changed at the railings. The crowd had gone quiet. Not silent. Crowds are never silent. But the volume had dropped, the way it does in a room when someone important walks in, before anybody's actually worked out who. I looked up. A car had stopped. Not at the main gate, further down at the small service entrance nobody ever photographs. It wasn't a nice car. Dark green, mud on the wheel arches, the sort of thing a vet drives. A woman got out of the back. No hat, no entourage, a gray raincoat, belted, and boots that had clearly been worn before. She was carrying flowers. Not a bouquet, not the wrapped, ribboned, professional kind. Just a handful of white ones, stems bare, held down at her side like she'd picked them herself and hadn't thought about how to hold them. Nobody recognized her. That's the part I still find hard to believe. I did, though. I'd poured coffee for 200 people who came to look at her family. I knew that face. Princess Adelaide. And she was standing in the rain, 40 feet from a crowd who were all facing the other way, and she looked, I want to be careful here, because it would be easy to make it prettier than it was. She looked tired. She didn't go inside. That's the first thing that struck me. The gate was open. A man in a dark coat was holding it, waiting, and she just stood, rain collecting on her shoulders, looking down the length of the wall. Then she walked, along the outside, towards the guard. Now understand, nothing about this was dramatic. She walked like a woman walking to a bus stop. But I felt my stomach go strange, the way it does before you hear bad news, and I realized I'd put my thermos down without meaning to. Halfway along, she stopped at a stretch of wall I'd walked past 10,000 times and never once looked at. There's a plaque there, small, bronze gone green, set low about waist height, half hidden behind a drain pipe. I couldn't tell you what it says even now. Nobody stops there, nobody photographs it. In 11 years I'd never seen a single soul look at it. She crouched down, in the rain in that coat on the wet pavement. and she laid the flowers against the wall. Then the dog got loose. I saw it happen. The girl in the red wellies bent to fix her sock, the lead slipped, and Biscuit was gone. Straight through the railings into the forecourt, low and quick and utterly delighted with himself. The crowd made that noise. The ooh that isn't sympathy, it's entertainment. The girl screamed, actually screamed, and she went for the railings. And here's where it gets uncomfortable, because that terrier ran directly at the sentry post. He was still, absolutely still. The dog circled him, barked twice, went up on his hind legs against the man's boot, dropped down, barked again. The crowd started laughing, cameras up. Some man was already saying, "He won't move, he can't move, watch." I've never wanted to shout at people so much in my life. Because I was looking at his hands. His right hand was on the rifle, correct, exactly where it should be. And it was shaking. Not trembling, shaking. A fast, fine tremor running all the way up to the sleeve. And his jaw had gone from set to something else. Something you shouldn't have to watch a stranger do in front of 100 people. He wasn't rattled by the dog. He hadn't even seen the dog. He was looking past it, past the railings, past the laughing men with cameras down the wall, at a woman in a gray raincoat crouched by a green bronze plaque. And she had stood up. And she was looking back at him. The girl was crying properly now, both hands on the railing, calling for Biscuit, and her mother was apologizing to nobody in particular. And the rain kept coming down in that soft, useless way. And Princess Adelaide walked, quite calmly, into the forecourt. The man in the dark coat moved to stop her, and she said something to him. I couldn't hear it, and he stepped back. She crossed the gravel. She bent down. She got hold of that stupid, scruffy, wriggling little dog with both hands and lifted him up against her coat. The crowd went completely silent then, all of them, every single one. Because they'd seen her now. And the phones had stopped all at once, the way people do when a thing stops being funny and starts being something else. She carried the dog back to the railings, handed him through to the girl, said something that made the girl laugh wetly with her face all red. Then she turned around and walked back to the sentry. She stopped in front of him, close, closer than anyone is allowed. He didn't move. He couldn't. 2 hours of stillness, and this is the training. You do not react, you do not turn, you do not acknowledge, you stand. His hand was still shaking. She looked up at him, at that low bearskin, at the 2 inches of face you're permitted to see. And she said his name. I heard it because I was closer than the crowd. Just his surname, quiet, like a question that already knows its answer. Whitlock. He blinked, that's all, one blink. She said, your father was a kind man. Nothing else. She didn't touch him. She didn't make a speech. She stood in the rain in front of a 19-year-old boy in a uniform that was too heavy for him, and she said 7 words, and then she stepped back and let him go on standing. Because that's what he needed, not comfort, permission to keep standing. He was still shaking, but he stood. And when the sergeant came through and barked the relief early, 3 minutes early, which never happens, not once in 11 years, that boy marched off that forecourt with his heels coming down like hammers, absolutely perfect, absolutely straight, and the crowd applauded, and he never once looked at them. He looked at the plaque. I found out afterwards. It took me a week and a conversation with a woman who cleans the offices on the north side. The plaque is for 4 men, palace guardsmen, all of them killed in the same year, a long way from here. One of the names is Michael Whitlock. The princess comes every November, same week. Same flowers, white ones picked from a garden nobody photographs. No press, no announcement, no car that looks like anything. 19 years, the cleaner said, since she was a girl herself. Nobody had ever seen it. Nobody had ever asked. And the only reason 100 strangers with cameras saw it that morning is that a 7-year-old girl bent down to fix her sock, and a small gray dog with a beard decided he'd had enough of being on a lead. I sold 4 coffees that day. I didn't feel much like shouting about it. I think about her crouched down at that wall before any of it happened. Before the dog, before the crowd, before the boy with the shaking hands. When she thought nobody in the world was watching. That's the part they don't put on the postcards. That's the part they'll never get a photograph of. We look at these people through railings and camera lenses and we think we've seen them. We haven't seen anything. The whole time we're staring at the palace. The real thing is happening 40 feet down the wall, behind a drain pipe, on a bronze plaque nobody stops to read.